IPO brings.
Yes, and it's interesting that they're sticking to the timeline that they had given of doing that IPO in the first half of 24. First, it was announced back in May 22. It was supposed to be the second half of 23, and that had been delayed because of market uncertainty. Some of these big IPOs that happened were not that successful. So, but they have reconfirmed that now will be, but depending on market conditions, in spring 24. And so more details here. Renault really making their case to investor on Ampere. And again, interesting that Renault was one of the first ones to get into that EV race. They were extremely successful with the Nissan Leaf and the Zoe model, but they kind of lost a bit of speed in that race, of course, with competitors like Tesla and now some of those Chinese competitors coming into the European market. So they're making their case for that IPO. They hope to raise, according to reports, between 7 and 10 billion euros. They said thanks to the IPO, Ampere will be fully funded. But of course, what we heard from the management is that they're not going to sell that unit at any cost. So they're still waiting and see, but trying to make a case to investors. Interesting that they're making that call this afternoon. They try to attract some US investors as well into their case. So some of the financial targets that they're given for Ampere this morning: 30% average annual growth of revenue between 23 and 30. They hope to more than double revenue between 25 and 31, from 10 billion to 25 billion. They hope to reach break-even point in 25, both in operating margin and free cash flow. And finally, operating margin above 10% from 2030 onwards. So they also announced the new models. At the moment, they only have 2 models, but they say their aim is to democratize EVs. Of course, that's the big challenge here for the EV industry. There's been this post-pandemic boom in EV car sales, and that is a slowdown in demand. So they have to break into the mass market. And of course, EVs are still very expensive. We've seen price wars between those EV makers. Prices are going down, so the challenge to how they can protect their margins. So they say they're going to launch 7. They're going to have 7 vehicles by 2031, including a new one that they've just announced today, an affordable one that will be below 20K. So we'll have more details on that small urban car, but of course that's how they try to reach the mass market, to make them more affordable. So all these details here, they said they want to reach EV and ICE price between 27 and 28. It's very interesting here. A lot of focus is on making those EVs more affordable. Of course, scale. They hope that we scale, and some of the investment that this IPO, some of the funds that it will allow them to reach, can help them cut the cost, make the production more efficient, and reach our market with some of these models. So they have to make their case this afternoon to investors, but that's how they want to place themselves again in that race where some competitors like Stellantis, of course Tesla, the Chinese competitors, all eating into their market in Europe in particular. So this is a fight back.
There's another story again that's around Qualcomm. What we've seen in the industry in recent months has been these cross-ownership announcements. I mean, when ARM was coming to the market, we heard that perhaps Apple was the cornerstone investor there. And it feels, as we look at this, Qualcomm may be investing in Ampere. It's interesting, isn't it, how you've got sort of this vertical integration that's taking place in some of the ownership structures of Qualcomm, saying that they may consider investing. They've already been on board anyway with some of the partnerships.
Yeah, and those software capabilities is really the key there. And they say actually in their announcement, Renault this morning, that 35% of the 11,000 employees that they have are engineers, and they're working very hard of having that software that can compete with Tesla. And again, Qualcomm potentially making an investment, that's something they had announced before, also potentially a deal with Google. So they're working very hard on that part because they know as well that's what can make them competitive.
Yeah, it's all about the digital side, all about the technology. Charlotte, thank you very much for that. We're going to be looking closer in the market open and seeing the response in Renault stock.
We certainly are, and a lot of this market is actually moving a little bit higher. Still some reaction, of course, coming through from that CPI print out of the United States. Will be interesting to also look at the FTSE 100. Then you can see the futures on that one going a little bit higher than some of the other.